So before we proceed to the actual presentation, I will state first the objectives of this presentation. So the first objective would be to identify and describe the people management issue and its importance to HR and management. Number two, discuss best practices to address the HRM issue, including defining key terms and presenting current theories and research that validates the effectiveness of recommended practices. Number three, present a case study describing how a specific organization addressed this issue, comparing identified best practices to the organization's implementation. Number four, recommended implementation strategies for other organizations, discussing the responsibilities of human resources and line management. And lastly, identify and discuss three insights into effective people management into your team gained from its research and analysis.
Hi there, welcome to our presentation on generational differences within the workforce. My name is Lucy.
My name is Cesar Ryan Bendita.
And my name is Paola.
And my name is Steffi McWan.
And this is for Professor Darren Hand for Human Resources Management. So first off, I'll talk about the generational diversity in today's workforce. So currently, millennials account for 50% of today's workforce. Alternatively, workers who are 65 and older are an ever-growing part of the workforce, and they are expected to double in the coming decades. Some issues in both generations are due to the fact that they tend to want different things in their career. For example, the younger generation tends to value purpose and personal growth, whereas the older generations place their value in job security and stability. HR's role in motivating employees from both generations or all generations can be achieved by recognizing similarities in both generation career goals. These are the current generations in the US workforce. So as you can see here, this table was populated in 2015. Let's learn how we can adjust to a multi-generational workforce by diving in a little bit deeper. So starting off with the bottom, the silent generation, or they're also known as the traditionalists. They account for a little bit above 5% of the workforce. They tend to be dependable, straightforward, tactful, and loyal. They are shaped by the Great Depression, World War II, radio and movies, and they are very motivated by respect, recognition, and providing long-term value to the company. In terms of communication style for this generation, they prefer personal touch or having handwritten notes instead of emails. And their viewpoints on the world is having an obedience over individualism. So meaning age equals seniority and advancing through the hierarchy. In order to retain this kind of talent, employers should provide a satisfying work and opportunities for them to contribute to. And that also emphasizes stability within the company. As we move forward on the table, the baby boomers, which accounts for 29% of the workforce, and in 2015, they tend to be optimistic, competitive, they are a little bit of a workaholic, and are very team-oriented. They are shaped by the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, and the Watergate scandal. They are motivated by company loyalty, teamwork, duty, and in terms of communication, right, whichever way is most efficient for you to reach them. So that includes phone calls or even doing a face-to-face interaction. Their viewpoints upon the world is that achievement comes after paying one's dues. So this is the generation that sacrifices mostly anything in order to be successful in life. In order to retain this kind of talent, employers should provide them with specific goals and deadlines, put them in mentor roles, and offer a coaching style kind of feedback. In terms of Generation X, which accounts for roughly 30% of the workforce here in 2015, they tend to be flexible, informal, skeptical, and independent. So the Generation X, they are shaped by the AIDS epidemic, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the dot-com boom. They are very motivated by diversity, work-life balance, and they prefer their personal and professional interests over the company's interests. So, in terms of communication, very similar to baby boomers, they prefer anything that gets to them as soon as possible. So, that includes phone calls, having a face to face interaction. For their viewpoint upon the world, they do favor diversity, and they are very quick to move on if their employer fails to meet their needs. And so, in order to retain this kind of generational talent, employers should give them immediate feedback, provide a flexible work arrangement, and have a healthy work life balance for them. And then, of course, extend opportunities for any personal developments that they should have in the future. Millennials, which does account for 34% of the workforce in 2015. And as I said earlier, they are currently now in 2022, 50% of the workforce. They tend to be competitive, civic minded. They are very open minded on diversity, and they are achievement oriented. So they are shaped by 9/11 and then, of course, the internet. They are motivated by responsibility, the quality of their manager, and having a unique work experience. In terms of communication style, very different in terms of Generation X and baby boomers. They do prefer texting and emails, or just direct messaging. In terms of their viewpoint for the world, they do want to seek challenges, they seek growth, they seek development within the work life, and they want a healthy work life balance, having a fun work life. They are most likely to leave an organization if they don't like change. In order to retain this kind of generational talent, employers should really get to know them personally, manage them by results, be very flexible with their schedule and work assignments, and of course, provide immediate feedback if possible. And we can see here that Gen Z, it's not listed in this table, unfortunately, because these were data listed from 2015. But Gen Z, as we know it now in 2022, they're roughly born within 2001 to 2020. They tend to be very global, entrepreneurial, progressive, and being a little bit less focused. They are definitely shaped by life after 9/11, the Great Recession, and then, of course, having access to technology from a very young age. So they are very motivated by diversity, personalization, individuality, creativity, and their communication style very, very similar to millennials, where you can text them, direct message them, or anything that has to do with social media. Their viewpoints of the world, of course, they self-identify as digital device addicts. They value independence and individuality. They prefer to work with millennial managers, innovative coworkers, and new technologies. And so, in order to retain generational Z within the workforce, employers should really offer opportunities for them to work on multiple projects at the same time, provide to them a healthy work life balance, and allow them to be self directed and independent. Here, so we can see here the workforce in 2025. This is kind of what's going to be projected. We can see here that generational Z, millennials, Generation X, and baby boomers are anticipated to make up over 99% of the workforce, and this is what's tend to be an estimated population in 2025. Of course, importance to HR and management, generational diversity is very important because we know that people of different ages bring different viewpoints to the table, which helps to increase innovation, and this also creates problem solving. They also provide chances for intergenerational mentoring, which can ultimately lead to rewarding career development, and then, of course, increase employee retention, which is something that we all struggle with now in the workforce. My colleague Caesar will take on the next steps to discuss best practices for different generations.
All right, so I'm Caesar again. I will be discussing about the best practices in human resource management. So again, most of the companies nowadays are trying to be more diverse and trying to be inclusive. So regardless of age now, we're trying to incorporate, again, all generations when it comes to decision making in management. So according to a study, it was mentioned in a study that a good HR practice can lead to a better employee engagement and give company a competitive advantage. Although it was noted that there is a correlation, there is more to learn since there is a lack of understanding when it comes to process wherein HRM is involved. So based on this, there is some correlation, but there is need to be more data to be able to actually link both the HR practice to better results. But the companies now are trying to do their own thing to make it more diverse and be able to decide better and to reach a larger market segment in the business. All right, next slide. Does generational difference matter? When it comes to HRM practice, generational difference does create a positive climate or work environment wherein an employee can become a competent member of the team. However, it is important to note that human resource management employees should modify expectations to consider various age groups because various generations may react differently. So as my colleague earlier said, so a millennial might be reacting to a situation differently than somebody from a baby boomer generation. So it's important to consider not just one generation, but multiple generations to make a better standard decision-making process. All right, next slide. So some of the best HRM practices that we would recommend or we saw. Number one, avoid stereotyping based on age or generational difference. So most of the people, they stereotype people based on generations, right? So they think that younger generations are more immature, while the older generations are more strict based on their standards. So people should stop doing that because sometimes like there can be a young person who is also mature and knows what they're doing. And there's also a senior people who are more technological savvy and some of the computer stuff. So they should be able to like not stereotype, but judge the person on how skillful they are on work. Number two, develop regular training plans that encompass various age groups. It means that regardless of age, training improves the company. So either involve all the people in the workplace, whether they're like 20 something, 30, 50, because everybody gets better as long as proper training is given to the employees. Number three, offer benefit packages that every employee will enjoy or need. So I know some of the young people nowadays, they're more concerned about getting a paid vacation or leave because they want to travel, while the older people might be concerned about getting maternity leave for their families or retirement plans. So every generation is different, but as a HR, we should discuss or deal with stuff that are applicable to all generations, not just a specific generations. Number four, promote team collaboration of people from different generations. So whenever there's a project, there should be a mix of members, not just, hey, this is a group of young people on this group, and there's going to be a group of people here with like older people. No, we need to mix because again, we're trying to be more diverse. So having people interact in a single project makes it more unified and more decided. And lastly, we should make employees understand the importance of diversity, which also includes having multiple generations in the organization. Having generational difference in the organization could possibly start a conflict. It is best practice for an HR personnel to stay neutral and don't take sides. For example, in the Navy, the age cutoff to join the service or military was raised from 34 years old to 39. And this policy could have an effect to the fleet because if someone is older and joined the service late, he or she will possibly have a supervisor who is way younger than him or her. This would be psychologically or mentally challenging for some to accept. In order to alleviate this type of issue, leaders or managers should promote open lines of communication. In that way, people are aware or reminded that Navy is similar to other armed services and need to follow a bureaucratic style of leadership. In another industries such as engineering, it is important to welcome young employees and give them an opportunity to lead. New graduates may have the latest technological training that can be beneficial to the company. While in school, new employees might have had been able to operate a newly designed equipment that could make work faster and efficient. We are aware that some people may be resistant to change and will try to continue with traditional way of doing things. However, failure to become open-minded and accept innovation will have a negative effect to the company. People belonging to different generations need to realize that they can learn from one another. Not agreeing about a certain topic is not a bad thing. Our next topic would be case studies. So, my fellow classmate Paula will be discussing the topic with you guys.
My name is Paula. I'm going to be discussing case study number 1, referring to Apple's internal generational dispute over remote working. Studies show that there's an executive employee disconnect about returning to the office. Internal conflict between the older generation's executive who miss being in the office environment and millennials who gravely benefit from remote work at home. Older executives are excited about returning to the office. This may suggest old school thinking about employment and are falling back on antique views. Apple has lost many employees and received strong internal pushback over its policy about bringing staff back into office. Millennials are leading this pushback. Moving on to the next slide. Apple lost its director of machine learning, Mr. Goodfellow, to Google because he believed Apple's policy was too strict, stating, I believe strongly that more flexibility would have been the best policy for my team. The best practice Apple could enforce is by committed to finding the best of both worlds when it comes to working in an office versus working remotely, and having placed a hybrid working policy. Apple has made adjustments to the work policy accommodating the different generation employees. The next slide is case study number 2. It compares both of the companies and shows how Apple accommodated both generations, and then Goldman Sachs, how they did not accommodate their younger generation. They are demanding workers to return to office full time. Older executives rely on face-to-face communication to get a better sense of what's going on throughout the organization, while younger people are becoming some of the biggest opponents to in-office work. The CEO of the company, David Solomon, demanded all employees return full-time to the office. He described remote work as not a new normal, saying that the company was going to correct this as soon as possible. The younger employees at Goldman stated the lack of understanding and support from the older generation of directors is frustrating and referred to them as stubborn. According to a conference board survey, millennials question the wisdom of returning to the office more than older generations, with 55% of millennials expressing concern about working in office. Next slide. The generational gap in Sachs. Gen Z are often labeled as lazy or entitled. You hear of older people who wait until they retire to travel. My generation is taking advantage of working remote to go to the airport and travel. This was stated by one of the workers at Saks. Some generation Z, Zoomers, and millennial prioritize flexibility to work from the office and remotely, wellness and mental health initiatives over money. The CEO demands all employees to return full-time to the office. Only half showed up after receiving more than 2 weeks' notice. After a week, more employees started returning to work, but hundreds look for new remote jobs. The best case scenario would be if Goldman Sachs offered 3 days in office meet and 2 days at home. But the company decided to stick to their decision to force their workforce back into the office. They would rather lose employees than adjust their policies, and they ended up losing a lot of their younger employees. And then the next slide, I'm going to be introducing my colleague and her recommendations.
Hi, my name is Steffi McWan, and I will be talking about the recommendations of implementing strategies for management for different generations. Companies frequently hire workers from different generations, so it should come as no surprise that each age has its own demands, aspirations, and characteristics that employers should take into account. Through a larger range of experiences, abilities, and methods, multi-generational team contributes valuable diversity. A key component of efficient personal management is attracting and keeping outstanding talent of all ages. The following tactics can be used by organizations in industries like healthcare, manufacturing, laboratories, etc., to inspire personnel from different generations. First one is to provide diversity training. HR should incorporate diversity training in orientation and then follow up with the age discrimination specific small group training. So for training on workplace diversity, particularly for multi-generation partnerships should be provided to all employees. Ideal training would cover topics like age-based stereotypes, role-playing activities like encouragement, participate to question presumptions, and tips on how to act in a discriminatory manner. Um, Additional training in management today's multi-generation workforce should be provided to frontline managers. Managers should make it a top priority to assist the team in understanding both the advantages of multi-generation workforce and the difficulties. They should also be clear that they are aware of the difficulties but are actively seeking out new methods to collaborate with one another and unite their team around this vision. For the next slide, the second point is develop cross-generational mentoring. Managers can give each employee a partner who belongs to a different age group and encourage them to interact frequently so they may exchange expertise. For example, younger employees might be able to provide some obscure computer program features, while more experienced employees can contribute as advice they have picked up over the years about the field. For example, mentoring is very important in the lab sciences. Early stage of lab project might be tedious and difficult. Because of the nature of the industry, young scientists can swiftly burn out. In the end, competent mentor can have impact on who does science, how productive they are, and how fulfilled they are on their career path in research. Young scientists can benefit from the insights and direction that the team of the mentor can offer from a variety of professional and scientific viewpoints. This benefits the mentee while also enhancing the mentoring culture within the organization. The third point is assemble age diverse teams for projects. Managers may take advantage of the distinctive strength of each generation by forming age diverse project teams while also encouraging team members to work together and develop relationships with one another. Mixed age teams lessons bias and gain from their varying skill sets of staff from various generations. For instance, a Generation Z employee may be familiar with the most recent technologies and social media outlets, yet a seasoned boomer may have essential understanding of the sector they work in. The healthcare sector is struggling with an aging patient population and severe scarcity of aged healthcare workers. The treatment provided in the hospital will be impacted by the generational divide that will result from the shift in patients and employee demographics. Hospitals and health systems that successfully integrate intergenerational teams into their workforce will be well equipped to meet the changing demands of the healthcare sector. A workforce that is eager and competent enough to produce the best clinical results and patients' experiences would be beneficial to these businesses. For the next slide, the fourth point is adopt flexibility. Managers can meet the various needs of multi-generation workforce by exhibiting flexibility on a wide range of issues. It is a crucial to adaptable when leading up to 4 generations in workforce. Younger workers might not have many outside commitments, so possibilities like conferences, workforce, and other novel experiences thrill them more. Middle-aged workers may want flexible work hours and prospect for growth because they probably have children, aging parents, and or mortgages. As they get older and may not require or want as much training, employees who are getting close to retirement generally value work-life balances. The last point is to get to know each employee as an individual. As a result of a frequent communication that takes place within a business, it is crucial to understand and address generational preferences in communication style. Managers can concentrate on each generation's advantages and make most of their contribution when they comprehend why each generation views the world slightly differently. It will take time to become familiar with their employees' unique demand and preferences. However, they may have a multi-generation crew that learns, develops, and most importantly, works well together if they start by taking these generational characteristics into account and gradually change time management approach over time. In order to communicate with employees, HR might design a procedure that consider their communication preferences and make use of their variety of channels. For instance, although many millennials prefer electronic communications, baby boomers prefer face-to-face conversation. For the next slide, Lucy will take over for the insights.
Thank you, Steffi. Well, these are some of the insights that we've learned from researching about generational differences within the workforce. For that first pointer, what I took from it was that job security will be important for millennials and, of course, Gen Z during times of recession, aka right now, and older generations will definitely want purpose in life. So, being able to recognize the needs and wants of these two generations, both the young and the older, can help retain both of these generational talents within the workforce. And then Caesar, go ahead and talk about what you've learned.
Okay, so another insight that I've gained through this project is that established companies already have some sort of branding in the eyes of consumers. So basically, some of the organizations locally or even globally, they already have like built name for the company. So either they're consumer centric or they have quality services. So it's important that new employees, regardless of age, whether they're young, new or old, they are able to uphold the same standard and continue to deliver the same quality products and services. So this concept needs to be emphasized also during the onboarding process whenever somebody's checking into the company, that they need to maintain the culture, even though there's differences within the experience of people, but they need to be united when it comes to the goal or mission of the company. And lastly, a fellow student will be discussing the third insight.
For me, I think that multi-generation, having a different diversity is very important in the workforce as they bring a lot of insights and valuable knowledge to each generation. So despite the fact there are four different generations in the workforce, diversity may enrich and strengthen the organizations. The company will have to gain competitive edge if executive and organizations treat people with respect and manage their age diverse workforce well. Lucy can take over next.
Awesome. Thank you, Steffi, and thank you, Caesar. So this is technically the end of our presentation. These are some of the many references that we've looked at in terms of generational differences within the workforce. Please feel free to take a look at all of these websites. They're very knowledgeable, and feel free to post up any questions, comments, or concerns that you might have, or any insights that you've taken out from this presentation, and post them on the discussion board for all of us to answer. We would more than love to see any comments or responses that you all may have. So more references and end of presentation. So again, thank you so much.